I know you are. I know you are. Hey guys, so we're gonna do something a little bit different today. We're gonna have like a slightly serious conversation, not that serious because both of us have wine, but like marginally serious. Um, and we're gonna talk about both of our journeys being single. I'm in a relationship now. Brittany has been married and been in relationships, and we just kind of want to dive into being in your 30s, being in relationships, not being in relationships, the questions you get asked, the pressure you get, why both of us think that it kind of doesn't matter if you're in a relationship in your 30s, and how much we've learned and gained and where we're at now. So, all that being said, Brittany, why are you single?
Why am I single? Well, before it was because I had taken out my hair extensions this week and I felt like a bald man. But we got these babies back in, and I'm feeling ready to go in the prowl tonight. Why am I single? Like Eve said, I was married and it was a hard marriage, and I think I learned a lot from being married. And I a part of me was a little hesitant to like just jump right back into a relationship after everything that I kind of like went through and learned. And so since then, I think I've just become a lot pickier with like who I allow into my life. And I'm not saying there's not like flings here or there, like situationships. Girls got needs. We all do. But at the same time, I think for me to like really allow someone to come into my life again, I need to know that they can meet me where I'm at and like give me what I'm able to give them, because I personally feel like I have a lot to offer someone, and I want that in return.
What do you mean by picky? Describe picky, because I feel like in my 20s at least, I'll say like I had a checklist, right? And it was like, I want him to have a career. I want him to look XYZ. I want him to watch this sport, play this, do this. And I feel like as I've gotten into my 30s, it's become a lot more about how someone makes me feel, whether they make me feel safe, whether they make me feel respected, whether they make me feel appreciated, whether they make me feel like I'm adding to their life and they're adding to mine in whatever way that is. And not to say that like looks don't matter, career doesn't matter, none of that matters, but just to say that something shifted for me, I would say, in probably the past 2 years. So when you say picky, what do you mean?
I think for me, it's not so much like a checklist either. I know, most people would probably listen to what I've just said and they're like, "Oh, you're emotionally unavailable," and that's definitely not the case.
But you were, I think.
I was. That's what I was about to
Yeah.
say. Like my first year in LA was after my divorce, and I kind of had to like figure out who Brittany was. What did I learn from my situation? Like I dated a ton and I met some amazing guys and not so amazing guys. But at the same time, it's like after I was married, I now know what I'm looking for, and I know like the type of person I'm looking for and what their morals and values are and how they're going to align with mine. And so if I'm going to be at this age and like fully commit to someone, then I want to know that it's one going to align with my values and what I want for myself and our life. And also I know that it's going to like, potentially lead somewhere. And I think afterwards you kind of like know how to weed through the BS a lot quicker. And so you're also less likely to put up with shit. And excuse me, sorry about that. Speaking of,
I've watched you when you first moved out here. I met you shortly after you moved out here and go through, your dating journey. And one of the things that I think that I've noticed in the past, I would say 6 months, is that you're very much serious about dating, but you've taken a really deep look into not future tripping about guys. And like, it still happens. It happens with me. It happens with most girls, I think, but you're very conscious of that. And trying to find that balance, I find, has been hard for me. And I know for you, in that, yes, I'm serious. I don't want to waste my time. And it's not that I don't want to waste my time because of my biological clock or whatever else, the red pill men online are going to say. I don't want to waste my time because it's my one life, right? Like, I don't want to waste time with a shit man, like point blank period, whether I'm 20 or 50. But at the same point, it's hard to know if they're the right man on date one, on date two, on date three, right? So I've struggled in my dating journey being like, I don't want to waste my time, but I also don't want to write someone off too quickly. And I know that that's been something that you've also kind of tried to balance. What would you advise women about that? Because I think that's something a lot of women in their
Yeah, and
30s
I think,
face.
it's so easy to meet this guy who, on paper, it looks like Prince Charming and like everything you've wanted, right? But at the same time, it's like, we don't know that person. We don't know that person in 3 dates. We don't know that person in a month. I mean, I thought I knew my husband and I was learning things about him well into the relationship that I never knew was going to come out, And I think you have to be very like mindful of that. And I think that's where you still have to kind of tread lightly. I think, yes, romance is very beautiful. Like, I was that girl that dreamed of being married when I was younger. And I think that's probably why I ended up in some situations that I did. But at the same time, now looking back, like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. And like you've said, I don't think we should write those people off. But I do think that's healthy in the sense that when you are dating and you're dating looking with like, the person that you want to, see where life could take with them, you need to kind of like date multiple people. And that is so hard to do whenever you like someone. Trust me, when I like you,
Hmm.
I am like all in. And
I
that's
think
me
most
in the
girls are, to
butt
be
before,
fair.
right? Because I don't think guys always date like that. And as much as like, or cliche as it is to say, it's kind of like we got to date like dudes. And my friends joke with me because they're like, you're like a guy sometimes. Like, you are kind of nonchalant, the way you text. Like, and it's not that I'm not interested. I think, I don't even want to say closed off. I think I'm just a little more hesitant to just dive right in right off the bat because one, I don't want to waste their time. And two, I don't want to waste mine. Right. So, like, why not like get to know each other a little bit better? But like get to know other people too. And that's me talking to myself in the mirror right now. That's not uh,
I was going to say, I
but
saw you out on a couple.
that's me definitely looking in the mirror.
But I also think that, like, devil's advocate, that it's hard to know what you could really have if you
Yeah.
don't go all in, right? And at a certain
You
point, you
too.
do have to take that risk. And part of the reason, because I was doing the same thing as you, I was going on multiple first dates, but I also found that the harm in that was they never really truly progressed because nobody was really
Yeah.
giving it anything. It was very surface. And are you
Yeah.
watching Summer House right now? Are
Yeah.
you watching
He's
Jesse
like
and
all in.
Lexi?
He's all in.
Well, he is, but also the moment she went all in, he was like, wait a second. Because I think there's something really fun about going all in and both of you going all in. But the reality is it's gonna either go up in flames quicker or be serious quicker. And if you're not ready for serious, that's what I found with myself is that, for example, the guy I'm now dating, when I first went on dates with him, I wasn't ready for serious. I thought I was. I was telling everybody I'm looking for a boyfriend, and he was giving me everything I wanted, and I ran for the fucking hills. And it took me another 9 months to be like, okay, actually, I'm
Yeah.
ready to
You're ready to like
consider this.
open your heart up.
But
Like,
yeah, and it wasn't
mhm.
anything he did. I thought I was ready until it was presented, and then it was like, wait a second, maybe I'm not. And I had to do some deep diving about, is it him? Is it my own stuff? Like, because I think simultaneously in your 30s, you know what you want, but also you're fucking terrified because you know how much you
Yeah.
can get
Yeah.
hurt.
And I think that that's something that I kind of had to realize a little bit. Like, when I first moved out here, I was introduced to a man that, I mean, probably any other girl would probably have married him in a heartbeat. And he really honestly showed me what healthy communication for the most part and like, being treated in a respectful way felt like I had never been treated that way. Like, I mean, I was wined and dined and he was amazing and we're still great friends this day, but I was terrified to let this guy in. Like, he was
Yeah.
ready. Like, I probably could be remarried right now, to be honest. Like, I don't know if he watches this, he might text me. I don't know about that, but I really feel like that he was all in and I was freshly divorced. I was terrified of opening my
Yeah.
heart up. I was terrified of getting hurt again or feeling the pain that I felt or the betrayal. Like, I do think that both people have to be ready. And, karma is kind of funny because I reconnected with a man I dated 20 years ago, early last year, and he had freshly gotten divorced. And, I was ready to like be like all in a way. And then he was like, oh no, I'm scared. I got to heal, work on
Yes.
myself. And, as much as it sucked at the moment, like, thank God, right? Because I didn't want to take on that trauma, just like I didn't want that man I met to take on my trauma. And
Of course. Yeah. Well, and I also think that like in your 20s, you're figuring out what you like. You date a lot. You date great people, people that aren't great for you. You learn, you are broke, you're not broke, you get wined and dined, you get treated like shit. Like you run the gamut. In your 30s, I feel like you're more hesitant, you're more selective, you're more serious. You're simultaneously more serious and more scared at the same time. And that is why I think in your 30s, you know what you want, you know when you're ready, and it's timing is
timing is
fucking
everything.
everything. Like there's so many men I've met in my 30s who I think we would have had a wonderful life in 3
Yeah.
years when they were ready, in 8 years when they were ready, because unfortunately, it's a rare man that is the same age as us that's ready in LA. Now that's different in different cities, but in LA, I would say the going marriage age is like 38 to
And this,
42. Whereas
oh, yeah.
in LA, yeah. Yeah. Like I would say in LA, the average person, adult man, I'm not talking about women, the average adult man is getting married maybe as young as 36, maybe as old as 34, but somewhere in the 38 to 42 age.
And
And
wherever they're hanging out in LA, like, can you like let a chick know? Because I haven't really met any of those.
I think that like unfortunately at 34 going on dates with other 34-year-old men in LA, and this is very specific to LA, their timing was not where
No.
mine was. And I should have been dating older. If I had to go back and give myself advice, it's when I was 28, I should have been dating
Yeah.
36-year-olds. And I wasn't. When I was 28, I was dating
I mean, now and then I
28-year-olds.
still date 28-year-olds, No, I'm just,
Right, right. And like, that's the one piece of advice I'd give myself. And not in the like, you're 22 dating a 40-year-old because you want someone to provide for you, but like you're 28 dating a 34, 36-year-old because mentally those men are ready and at the same place you are in terms of planning a
and
future.
I also think you could, help add to this, Eve, that when you've kind of been through like a difficult relationship, like everyone's had hard relationships. But I think if you've been
Yeah.
through, whether you've been married before and you went through a divorce, because you learn so much about people in a divorce and you learn about the legal aspects of marriage, and that really opens your eyes to things.
The
Yeah,
financial impacts that you don't
impact,
even
you
know
don't even
about.
know like the risk or consequences because all you're thinking about is the big wedding whenever you're doing it.
Plug,
Yeah,
get a prenup.
we can touch on that for sure. But like when I meet some guys or men sometimes, I feel like they don't even understand some of the emotional stuff I've had to overcome. And it's like hard for me to
Yeah.
even like relate to them in a way. And I think that's where like a little bit for me personally, dating a little bit older or someone that's been married before would be more beneficial to me because we both get it.
1000%. And I think that women are thrown into emotional situations and they're thrown into, and just by virtue of the fact that we're often required to societally hold more of the emotions, hold more of the feelings, hold more of the empathy in the relationship, take care of the other person, etc., which I'm fine with. I enjoy that aspect, but largely that means when you're with someone and they're having a bad day, you're taking care of them. But when you're having a bad day, you're also taking
Yeah.
care of yourself. Like there's even in my best relationships, I very rarely had a man empathize emotionally. He might say, I know you're having a bad day. Let's get a drink. But to have the deeper conversations I would have with like a girlfriend like you, even the best guys I've known, because they were not raised as
Right.
kids to open up emotionally in that way. So when someone does it to them, they don't know how to respond. And I was literally talking to my boyfriend about this the other day because he's been hanging out with us a lot, right?
Yeah.
In girl groups. And he jokes, he's like, guys don't talk like this. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, because I didn't think anything we were saying was weird. I was like, yeah, it's girl talk, but it's not like, he was like, I don't know a single thing about any of my guys' relationships. Not a single thing. He was like, you know about all your girlfriends' relationships. You know the fights, you know the ups, you know the downs. He was like, I couldn't tell you a single thing. He goes, when we go on bachelor parties, the last 20 minutes before we get to the airport is reserved for, okay, update me on your life because my girlfriend's going to ask what's new with Chris, Matt, whatever. What's going on? Did you get a new job? You still got the same girlfriend? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I can update her. And he was like, that's the only time we talk. And it's not even that's emotional. He was like, the entire weekend is just us shooting the shit, talking sports, reminiscing on college. He was like, there's not an emotional conversation to be had. And I would say, because you've met my boyfriend, I would say he's a fairly
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent person. Like he's not, like if anyone's having emotional conversations, it's him. And he was like, no.
I think that's funny. I think, to kind of to tie back in on like what you asked in the sense of like what my like pickiness is or whatnot. I think mine is kind of the friendship aspect. I didn't have that when I
Yeah.
was married. We were not very like close friends in the sense. It was more started off very physical and all of that aspect. But I want a friend first. And I want a friend that I can have fun with, a friend that we can go and have a few cocktails or, goof off, be silly together. And I did not have that. So that's so important to me. And I think that is also kind of like a huge thing to look out for whenever you're dating and like looking for your person and respecting them. Like you don't want to date the hottest guy in the bar. One, they probably have no personality. Okay, let's put it that way.
They
Yeah,
just
they never
have
had
a
to have a
personality.
personality. Like again, as I look at myself in the mirror, you need to date the nice guys. You need to date the guys that make you laugh. And, you still need to be attracted to them and you still need to have chemistry. I don't think you should settle for bad sex by any means. I think we are too young for that.
But I will say, devil's advocate, sex can be improved upon. A bad
That's true.
personality
I
cannot.
do think sex can be improved upon if they're
Okay.
open to talking about it and they're open to listening and wanting to work on it. And I do think that is okay. I talk to many friends. I don't think you're going to marry the man that you have the hottest sex with, and I think that that's okay. That took me a long time to kind of, figure out a little bit.
I also, and this is something that like not everyone will agree with. I also, and I know you do agree with this, I don't think marriage is necessarily forever in this day and age. Would I love to meet my person and be married to them forever? Yes, obviously. The same way I'd love to find my dream job and never have to go on another interview. But the reality is that the idea that I'm going to meet someone today, who I am and who they are, we're both going to grow because I hope we both fucking grow. And we're both going to grow in a way that stays as in love with each other, if not grows in love, even though I don't know where I'm going to be in 20 years and he didn't know where he's going to be in 20 years. That does seem a little irrational. And would I love that to happen? Of course. Am I going to go for that, try for that? Yes. But at the end of the day, if in 20 years we've run our course and I end up thinking it's not a fit or he ends up thinking it's not a fit, I'm not going to feel like that was a failure.
I agree with you on that. I do think that, changing your mindset of thinking that maybe you're finding your person that's meant for you right now. And
right now,
that's such a nice, better way to look at it. In a way, it kind of takes pressure off because when I was 30 and I got married at that moment, it's what I wanted right then. We ended up not being the best for each other, obviously, but I don't think if I had not have had that experience, could I ever be the person in my next relationship that they would need me to be or be able to grow up a little bit, And so it's nice to kind of look at marriage as it's not an end all be all. And then if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't work out with that person, hey, guess what? I bet you still had some wonderful memories with them. And hey, go find another one.
Learned a lot. Like I said this in a TikTok recently, and I think I said it maybe the last time we spoke, but my therapist that I was working with a while back would always say to me, you've done so much work on yourself the next work you need to do is in the confines of a relationship, and you can't do that work without a partner. And so, you're not going to be able to work on your anxious attachment sitting at home by yourself, twiddling your thumbs, or, chasing after situationships that are not ready emotionally, right? You're not going to be able to work on your communication skills with the fuck boy who's not trying to communicate with you. Like, you can't, right? And so there are, like, I'd learned so much single, and she was like, you're going to learn so much in your next relationship that I can't even help you with now because you're not being triggered. It's not coming up for you. And I started seeing a new therapist last week, and I was telling her this because I said, I'm starting to get triggered in this relationship. And she was like, about what? And I said, he's not doing anything wrong. He's not doing anything bad. It's just past issues that I'd never had the opportunity to work through while single. So even if you meet somebody and they're your person, like this idea that if you meet someone, you need to A, know that they're your husband immediately, B, they should be your husband, and C, that husband is going to last forever. And also, it's going to make you happier. I mean, me and you have talked about that. The grass isn't greener in a relationship. It's just different. Is something that I wish I could tell my 25-year-old self. Unfortunately, I don't think my 25-year-old self would have listened, but I wish I could tell her that and really get it. I wish my 30-year-old self could hear that and really embody that having a husband is not going to fix me. And no. And also, he might be my husband for 5 years. He might be my husband for 20. We don't know. I hope to God I grow. I hope that we grow together, but there's no predicting the future.
And I think another thing too is like, and I can say this because I've had the big wedding. Okay. So to me, that is not anything that is important to me. Now, if you have not ever experienced that, I hope it's everything that you've ever dreamed of if you're listening. And same for Eve. Like
Yeah.
when Eve gets married, I hope it's everything she's dreamed of because I know she looks forward.
That could be big or small or whatever. I hope personally that you get the wedding that I think the wedding, I hate to say this, but I think the wedding's for the girl. And I think the girl should get the wedding that they dreamed of as a little kid, because I think it does something to soothe your inner child, even if it seems silly and whatever. Like, we all want, like, our generation wants that moment.
They do. And I think, I to me, the next time that I do get married, I was too focused on the wedding, and that was a lesson that I learned for myself. And it's about the person. And when you're standing up there, like at the end of the day, it should not matter whether or not those chairs are, pretty or they're saying your napkins don't match. It should be like, who's looking back at you. And that's, if I could just stress that enough, because I say this to all my friends that are in relationships or they don't ever really take time to really figure out what is best for them. It is so much better to be alone and wait for that person that compliments you than to be in a relationship and be miserable, because there's nothing more lonely than being trapped in a relationship that you're not happy in. And I will advocate for that a million times.
Yeah. My last relationship, the last 6 months, we were completely done, but we hadn't moved out, or I hadn't moved out rather. And I remember every night, he used to stay up till like 4 a.m. and I'd go to bed at like 10, 11 because I'd get up to work out. Every night at like 8 p.m., I'd put my pajamas on. I'd pour myself 1 glass of red wine. I'd go to the bedroom. I'd close the door. I'd watch Bravo. I'd drink my red wine. He'd sleep on the couch. And I have never felt more lonely than living in an apartment with him, going to bed by myself, drinking a glass of wine, watching my show by myself, waking up, he would sleep in, going to work, repeating, and never feeling, it was just like, yeah, sure, we'd have sex on the weekends once, but there was no sense of intimacy. There was no sense of, I mean, I think, like, back to your point about date your friend, I think date the guy who, if he's sick and he can't have sex, you still enjoy hanging out with him. If he's exhausted and he can't have sex, you still want to be around him. If he's in a bad mood, you still want to go hang out with him. Date the guy who, on his worst day, you still want to chill on the couch beside because he's still your best friend. Because I would say, like, even on your worst day, I'm never going to be like, I don't like Brittany today, so like, not going to
Get
talk to her.
you know, and I mean, there's not saying that you don't need space from your partner at times or like you need your alone
Sure.
time, but like, I think it also stems back is date someone that respects you and that you respect. I did not, we had kind of lost respect in our marriage, and I can't speak for him, but you know,
Why not, Brittany? Why can't you speak
you
for a
can
man?
tell when somebody like respects you and when they really love you, like you can tell. And I just look forward to that because I now know like what it looks like when they don't. And I think that's kind of part of my hesitancy with men is that if you don't respect me to start off with, screw you. I don't need to sit back
Yeah.
and try to make you like me or make you respect me because I know who I am and I know what I can give you, you know? And I know that sounds bitchy or
Well,
conceited, but it's true.
no, it doesn't. If a man said it, it wouldn't sound bitchy or conceited. It
Yeah.
would be very normal. And I think that, like, to double down on that, one of the things that we've talked about before is that we part of the reason you're picky, and I say picky in quotes because I wouldn't say picky, but I would say looking for your equal. Part of the reason I've been looking for my equal is because when I was in my 20s, there were a lot of things, and this is going to sound arrogant, but there were a lot of things men could offer me. I was in law school. I didn't have a full-time job. A man who had a full-time job could provide monetarily. A man who was older might have more emotional, intelligence or security he could provide for me. That, I was new to the city. Someone could show me around, all of these things, or they had friend groups they could introduce me to. I've now been in LA long enough. I have a very strong friend group. I have a very strong social life. I have a great career. I am independent financially. I'm very confident in who I am and what I bring to the table. And so it's hard to agree for me to agree to be with a guy if I bring XYZ to agree to date a
Right.
guy who brings X. I've dated guys who brought X, right? Because it's like I didn't sign up to take care of you. Now I'm diminishing my funds and my energy and my social skills to fulfill your needs and fill your basket. And I understand it's a balance. And if 10 years into the relationship, the guy you're with loses
That's
their job,
different.
yeah, of course
Right.
you'd pick up the pieces, but I'm not starting from I'm here and you're here, right? The same way I would hope a man wouldn't want that. I don't want a charity case, and neither does
Yeah.
anyone else, right? And so I think that, to your conversations we've had before, that can be intimidating for men because they are taught to provide, they are taught to take care of, they are taught that is not necessarily a woman's place as society changes, and there can be intimidation. And people have often told me that they think I intimidate guys. I don't personally believe it because I think I'm a weirdo,
Yeah. I think
but
they just don't know how to take your personality because it's more goofy, you know?
yeah, well, but I mean, like you've said you're afraid
Yeah.
that you intimidate guys, and it's like, well, I think intimidate is such a harsh word because I don't think you're scary, right?
But I think it's
But
like
I think you have everything going for you, and you have to find a guy who still understands where his role is and understands his role isn't just paying the bill, because you've got that. His role isn't just existing as a physical form. You've got that. Like, his role needs to be better than that. His role needs to have that emotional intimacy, have that friend baseline, have that respect. And
it
that's
is
harder
more.
work. That's
And I
deeper.
think, you know, with kind of like, you know, the intimidation thing, like it's kind of like a catch 22 sometimes for women. Like I grew up in the South. I grew up with the parents that have been married for 45 years. My mom had dinner on the table every night. My dad worked. My mom worked full time too. It's like and for someone that kind of believes in traditional roles, I still, you know, I don't expect a man to pay for me in the sense of provide all the
No,
money. I like to bring stuff to the table.
no.
I'm smart. I have a career. I'm educated. So I'm not leaning on that for survival. And kind of like you were saying,
I'm
I'm
not
not
asking for
asking
it.
for it. And like if they find that intimidating, then that's a them issue. And that's an insecurity. And
Yeah.
that's them seeking validation in different ways. And people might rip me a new one for that comment, but it is true. And people that,
Why wouldn't you
right,
want double the
why would you
income?
not? And I think it's just so funny because you can pick there, in the word of Tinks, there's nothing scarier than an insecure man. And I've gotten real good
Oh,
at picking them out in a line.
you are. You are very good. And the other thing is that, like, so say a man's like, well, I can provide for you. You don't need to have a job, right? I have two thoughts on that. The first is, you know what scares a man off real fast? You focusing all
Yeah.
your energy on them. Saying they can provide for you, and so you're just going to twiddle your thumbs at home and be bored and text them. They don't like that. So that's point one. Point two is watching my parents get divorced and my mom, having not worked since 1992, not be able to re-enter the workforce. Because what do you put on your resume? I worked 30 years ago when my child was 4, and now I've gotten divorced and I want to go back into the nursing field, but everything has changed. And yes, I have great experience and I'm a hard worker, but you can hire someone half my age for half the cost who's actually been in the workforce and understands the machines. Watching that, not only did it derail her confidence and her independence, but financially, she was up a creek. And I've never so clearly known that I will never allow my finances to be dictated by the person I'm with. Because what also happens is if you say, man's going to provide for me, that's great. He says he's going to, he loses his job. He dies. He gets killed in a car accident. Heaven forbid. Like, you can't predict 5 years from now, much less tomorrow. So
I agree
take
with
care of yourself.
Yeah.
So
TED Talk number one point is to take care of yourself, or just like, be mindful of it, because, I've met women that in my line of work, they were married for all these years. They were a kept woman. I mean, yeah, it sounds lovely, right? Pilates, lunch with your friends, get your hair done, Botox, all that. But then their husband was cheating on them. Well, guess what? They also didn't have a thing to their name because they've been using their husband's name on everything. Well, now they're living with their roommate in an apartment after living the lavish lifestyle. You don't want that. See, it's like you always kind of have to still look out for yourself in that sense and just be mindful of it, because when you if you have to go through a divorce, that person is really not worried about you. They're worried about what they can get
no,
from it. And that's just something you need to remember. And that
well,
sounds bitter, but it's the honest truth.
no, it's just honest, and that's like to circle back on when we were talking about prenups. People have such a fear of a prenup, and I guess what I'll say is it's the same as getting
Yeah.
insurance for your car. No one drives thinking I'm going to get in a wreck today, right? Like no one's going down the road being like, "Oh, I'm going to get in a wreck," yada yada. But heaven forbid you
Right.
do get in a wreck. How much would it suck to not have insurance? And now you've got a totaled car and you owe 40,000, or you owe your car and their car and you now don't have a car. Like no one wants to get in a wreck. No one's expecting to get in a wreck. We're all decent drivers, or we're trying to be, but things happen. And if you never get in a wreck, you never have to use your
Right.
insurance.
But
Cool.
thank
You're good.
there.
Right? Yeah, like thank God. But if you do get in a wreck, you're not fucked off a creek. And that's how I feel about prenups. And I never want a prenup that, skews one way or the other. But I will say, if you don't have a prenup, there is already one in place. It's whatever the state law is. And state laws vary a lot. And we've talked about this in Virginia, in North Carolina, and South Carolina. You have to be separated from your husband for a year before you can actually get divorced, which not the case in California, but that's a burden. You have to actually live separately, et cetera. You can't just get a
Yeah.
divorce tomorrow. That requires a lot of paperwork, a lot of time. And financially, some states are at fault states, some are not. I know, for example, couples that the husband cheated on the wife, very much admitted to it, obvious, et cetera, but they were at a no fault state. So it didn't matter. It was still split 50-50. And, or not even that, the husband got an attorney and the wife didn't, and the wife didn't get alimony and the wife
Yeah.
was up a creek. There are just so many
Or
loopholes.
if you're the
that
breadwinner and you get separated or divorced, you can be at risk of paying alimony to a man that makes less than you. And a lot of
who didn't have a job the entire marriage.
They're little things. You just never know.
Yeah. So what I'll say is get a prenup. It's like car insurance. It's very rational. It does not have to say anything crazy. It's just yours is yours, mine is mine. If we get divorced, we're not going to make the finances an issue. And frankly, if you're getting into a marriage for money, you got your priorities screwed. So you're going into a marriage worried about how much money you're going to get out of him. Take a step, take a beat.
Okay, Eve. So if you had the opportunity or were given the opportunity to say you don't have to work, or you know what, I'm good. You take some time off of work. We're gonna have a baby, raise our kid for a little while. Would you feel comfortable not working? Would you be able to turn over that type of, responsibility?
Leaf. Yeah. No, I think I would be comfortable not working until the age that they went to preschool. So I would be comfortable not, like, there are some parents who allow their kids to go to daycare, right? Or they get a nanny through, the age of 4. I would be comfortable not working for those 4 years until they got to pre-K, right? It would, trust me, be fucking difficult, but especially in a situation where, and I probably, because of my age, will have kids back to back, right? In a situation where you're having kids back to back. So you're having one and then a year later you're having another. So you have like a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. I can imagine staying with them for 3 to 4 years until they're both 4.
If you're lucky enough to have that opportunity and your husband, well, that's beautiful, right?
Right.
Like,
for sure. There's no way in hell I'd do it longer than that. That's the longest I'd go. But I also, when I specifically took the job I took where I am now, because it gives me flexibility, I do not want my kids to have a nanny. And so I will be the parent leaving work at 3 to go to soccer practice and working later at night if I need to. And I will make sure that that is important. And I will be the parent there, for their games, their rehearsals, what have you. Because I do think that's incredibly important to me. And that's not, everyone doesn't have that option either, right? But that's something that I will prioritize, and I'm willing to take a pay cut for that flexibility. I'm not willing to give up a career.
I think,
and I will say, like, that's the beautiful thing about your job is I feel like you have that flexibility, which is really nice. And I think that it's set both of us up in a really good place to have a career and have a family, whether intentionally or we manifested this.
I mean, I think we both worked really hard to get where we are, right? And so we've put in our time. Like, I've put in some hard work, not saying I'm still not hustling here and there, but I've worked hard to get where I am. I think you have too.
Yeah.
Now, a little bit on the other hand, when I get married, if the man was like, you can work part-time, and I would love that. I would love to take my passion and work part-time. And then the other time I would love to be at home and help, be the traditional wife, because I do like that role, right? I know it probably doesn't seem like that with my personality and what we've talked about today, but I think for the right person, you can bring what you want to bring to the relationship. When you have to be in charge and be the man or be the provider, you have to step up and do that. And sometimes that's intimidating. But if you are in your safe space with the right partner who respects you and y'all respect each other, that's when I feel like a woman is allowed to finally take off the weight on her shoulders.
Be herself.
But just relax. They can actually be in their most feminine energy. They can feel secure and safe, and they can allow him to be in the more masculine role. And we've talked a lot about that, like, that's a hard thing to do when you've always been when you've had to be in charge, right?
Right. It's hard to be in your feminine energy when you've never had that option, right? When it, like, the rent's not getting paid unless I'm working to pay the rent, right? Like, okay, cool. You want me to be in my feminine energy? Is some pigeon going to drop off the rent check? Like, they're not. So cool. Got to go to work. And guess what? If I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do a good job. I'm not going to go and get fired. Right. So, like, yeah. And frankly, I don't resent that. I've learned a lot from it. But also this notion that some guy's going to come in and save me, and I'm suddenly going to, like, flip a switch and go from taking care of myself for the past 16 years of my life to, oh yeah, you got it. Like, That's insanity. It's
Yes. I know, and I
illogical.
mean, that's where, like, kinda what you said about, like, seeing how you're gonna be in, like, your next relationship after you've kind of, like, worked through some of the things you needed to, like, work through, like, I look forward to that, right? Like, I've always been very strong-minded, and, like, that was something I needed to work on a little bit when it came to relationship, and I look forward to seeing how that communication and, like, dynamic works with my
Yeah.
next partner, but you aren't able to practice those things until you get the opportunity to, you know?
It's interesting, and I will say that, like, I don't and I don't know if my boyfriend's my person, right? Like, I don't know how you know in advance, like, it is what it is, you figure it out, but I will say it's been like, when you have a really good workout and it's hard, but it feels good because you can feel, like, your muscles sore and you feel like worked at the end of it. The past month, I've had so much anxiety. I've woken up multiple times with nightmares thinking he broke up with me and he literally looks at me like I'm crazy. And I've never felt simultaneously mentally stronger because it's like those muscles are working. They weren't working for 6 years, right? I wasn't having to fight my anxiety in a relationship. I wasn't having to fight these things. I was able to do whatever I wanted, and for the first time I'm actually being tested, and it's like a healthy thing. I think in the right relationship, it's when they say, like, in the right relationship you'll grow, you'll be with someone who they make you grow and you grow. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm growing. It's painful, don't get me wrong. Like, eating salads isn't fun, but you
Right.
feel good. I'm anxious, but working through these things feels good, even though the process, like lifting weights, is painful at
But
the
also, like, how
time.
beautiful is it to have found someone who's seeing these sides of you and these worst sides of you, and especially even so early on, and accepting you. And I think that's like another very much key point. Like, the right person or a healthy relationship, healthy communication, healthy emotional intimacy, or an intelligence is going to see things that they might not love about you, and it doesn't make them run away, or they don't call you crazy, or it doesn't make a fight.
Yeah,
And I think those are things
right.
also, like, to be so much more aware of, and you probably learn that more in your dating as you get older, and you're able to kind of pick that out with people,
For sure.
because the immature
For sure.
guys are going to be like, oh,
Well,
this bitch is crazy, like, I gotta go.
it's too hard. It's too much. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, 1000%. And, like, I say this because I don't like putting relationships on a pedestal. And so it's not that, like, he's perfect or I'm going to get married to him. Who knows, right? But it's been really nice to learn and to work through my past. And again, if I had to talk to my younger self, I'd say maybe I should have dated someone in the past 6.5 years to learn some of these lessons and not waited for the perfect, you know what I mean? Because I also think that something that happens in your 30s is you're waiting for someone who is, because you're like, I don't want to waste my time. I want it to be the right person. And then you hesitate because you don't want to get entangled with
Right.
someone if you think they're only 70%. And it's like, part of me wishes 2 years ago, 4 years ago, I dated someone for 6 months, a year to
Yeah.
work through some of this. But
Yeah.
here we are now.
So I'll ask you the same question and we can kind of wrap up here. What's like the number one piece of advice that you would tell younger girls that are dating and are looking forward to marriage? I think I already said it, is that it's so much better to be single and take your time and be patient than to ever be in a bad relationship. And you really and really be
1000%.
mindful of that. You deserve it. And there's good people out there.
I think I don't remember what podcast or TikTok or wherever I saw this on, but somebody said, write out everything you bring to the table. And I think being really clear in what you bring to the table makes it really easy to weed out people who don't have the same
Mhm.
goals or vision, who don't bring similar things to the table. And that whatever those things are, right? It might be that you bring a really creative, free spirit
Right.
to the table, and that's important to you. So obviously probably don't date a banker. Like, whatever it is that you bring, be conscious of that and seek those same things, or at least be aware of whether the other person has them and their importance to you. It doesn't mean you have to be the same person, but if you are a super creative and he's not, does he at least appreciate that you're a creative? Does he at least respect it and shine
Right.
light on it, right? Doesn't mean you have to be the same, but it just means that like you want to be with someone who either understands what you bring to the table or at least at the minimum respects and appreciates
I
it.
like that too.
That would be my full circle. Shall we go grab a drink?
My light just
It's
went
Friday
out
night.
anyway. My brand new light.
Oy.